This is a snow machine. It uses a solution of soap, rubbing alcohol, and water called snow juice to create clumps of bubbles that look like snow. I want to use it for my Christmas light show, but first we need to build a box to put it in, a controller that can receive a signal from my computer to control it, and an automatic refill system to keep the tank full of solution. Here is the box I designed. It will hang under the overhang of my roof and house the snow machine, a tank of snow juice, and the controller. Time to cut some plywood. Now that the main part of the box is finished, I cut out a piece of plywood to use as a lid, as well as cutting some holes in the side of the box for a vent and to pass wires through. Once that was done, I painted it brown so you won't see it at night, and then added a 3D printed vent and pass through for cables. Next, I need some way to hang it under the soffit. I started by drilling some holes and screwing in some hanger bolts. I then cut some pieces of wood to go across the top of the box and hang on the hanger bolts. They will go through these holes with a nut on the bottom. I drilled some holes through the box to bolt on these L brackets. Then I marked and drilled another set of holes in the boards to hang the box from it with the L brackets. Some carriage bolts were then hammered into the boards from the top to go through the holes on the L brackets. I also glued a sheet of plastic to a piece of wood to keep the circuit board away from the bottom of the box in case the snow juice leaks. Now that the box is finished, let's build a controller. I'll be using an Atmega 328P microcontroller. It's the same one that is used on the Arduino Uno, which makes it easy to use. We will need a MAX 485 DMX transceiver chip to receive the DMX signal from my computer, as well as some diff switches to set the DMX address. Then I will need a 2N2222 transistor to drive this 5V relay, as well as a 1N4007 diode to protect the transistor from flyback. Of course, I will also need an HLK 5M05 5V power supply module to power everything. I also designed a custom circuit board. Now that we have the components, it's time to start soldering. Once everything was soldered together, I installed the DMX transceiver and the microcontroller. Next, I needed to flash the microcontroller. Since I didn't have an AVR programmer at the time, I used another Arduino. Once the microcontroller was flashed, I coated the high voltage traces on the circuit board with some very dried up paint on electrical tape. I bought a C13 to C14 extension cable and cut off one end since the snow machine has a C13 connector on the current remote. I opened up the snow machine and followed the wires going to the connector to figure out the pin out, then connected the cable to the controller. I also connected a wire from one side of the relay to neutral. Now that the controller is finished, it's time for a test. I plugged in the cable for DMX, and when I tried to turn it on from my computer, nothing happened. I went back outside and the snow machine didn't have power anymore. The breaker had tripped and the fuse in the snow machine blew as well. After checking my connections again, I found that I had reversed 2 wires. We now have a box to put the snow machine in and a way to control it, so the only thing left was to build a system to automatically refill the snow juice from a larger bucket. I started by drilling 2 holes in a 5-gallon bucket, one near the bottom for a float switch and one higher up to pass some tubing and a wire through. This float switch will be to keep the pump from running if the bucket is empty. I need to connect some tubing to the submersible 12-volt pump I'll be using and put a check valve in right after the pump to keep the solution from siphoning back into the bucket. The pump will go in the bottom of the bucket, and the tubing in the pump's power wire goes through the hole I drilled near the top. I will be using this container as a solution reservoir that will sit next to the snow machine. It also gets a float switch in the bottom to turn off the snow machine if the snow juice gets too low, as well as one near the top to turn on the pump when it starts to get low. The lid for the container also gets 2 holes, one for the tube coming from the snow machine and the other for the tube from the pump. I then mixed 4 gallons of snow juice in the bucket just to find out that the seal around the float switch leaked, so I dumped it into another bucket and added some silicone. I also made this simple circuit board with a relay and some screw terminals to control the refilling system. Now that everything's finished, I just need to set it all up. When I went to test the refill system, the float switches were sinking in the soapy solution instead of floating, so the pump wasn't turning off. I cut a piece of foam from a pool noodle that fits around the float and glued it in place, and now it floats and stops the pump when it's full. Here's the snow machine in action. Thanks for watching.